Never have enough time to play it all. You know everybody wants to walk in someone else's shoes. Everyone's forgot who they are. Such a crime.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Otter Creek in Rio Grande. Kind of picking up right where I left off in the last video. I'm gonna work in this area from here to down over here and try and figure out what these landforms are going to look like. And you know, a lot of this is scene composition, for a fancy model railroad term. And anytime I go and do this, there's several things that you're trying to keep in mind. And one of the main things that I'm trying to keep in mind is, when does the track come in? Do I lay this before I do some of this, or do I make this section, which is the decision I think I've already made, is that this section here, at least part of it, needs to be removable, or at least removable up until the point that I make the track permanent. So that's what I'm going to get started doing, is trying to figure this out. I do want to bring the camera over on this side, because in the last part of the previous video, or at least I think it's the previous video, I'm probably 3 weeks ahead in this video than when I actually filmed it. But you know, this was it's very flat, very narrow, and looking at it straight on, it doesn't do the eye justice. So I'm going to bring the camera on this side and talk a bit more about scene composition and what I'm trying to accomplish right in this area. Here's an example of a scene that I've kind of had in the back of my mind for a long time. Ever since I laid, you know, this track here going up to Hell Gate. You know, and that's the idea that you could look across here and get maybe a sense of distance that you don't normally get. And one of the things that I like to try and do is keep things movable and adjustable, because, you know, looking at this, I don't particularly like this. You know, so here's the tunnel portal coming out, and this, as it comes further this way, needs to be behind the track, but up until the tunnel portal needs to be in the track. So I think, you know, looking at the camera, through the camera, that this needs to be back further for sure. Now I'm going to take a step back and look. And that, to me, to my eye, that kind of opens the scene up a little bit more. And now it's too high. Of course, that's also probably needs to come back a little bit. But I like that better. And, you know, there's several different ways you can handle this kind of thing. And for me personally, I'm never satisfied, or I never give up after my first look at something. So I'm always kind of trying different things, and keeping things removable, manipulatable in the process helps with that. So let's take a look at this next scene that I'm kind of looking at the moment. This is another angle that, as you come in the door, you know, you should be able to follow your eye with the track and see the landforms on this side, and this needs to come down, which, you know I've showed in a previous video with a cardboard silhouette what I'm thinking about here. But you can see this already looks so much better from this perspective than it did in the previous video looking straight on. So that's what I'm trying to keep in mind as I do all of this, is just looking at different angles and figuring out, because as this comes around this way, I also need to flesh out everything this side of the track and what is it going to look like and how is it going to integrate with what's down here. So just things I'm trying to keep in mind as I move forward. Track, when does it come in? What do things look like? What do I want them to look like before I actually make anything permanent? And trying to get a couple different ideas before I do make something permanent, so I feel like I've made good decisions along the way. I've added this 3/4 inch piece of foam spline to the outside of the masonite spline. And I think that's going to work and give me a little extra standoff in here. And I've determined that between this area and this area, I think I need about 5 inches, 5 pieces of foam. That's give or take 22 inches, depending on where you measure from. And then I think they need to be, I don't know, probably 10 inches. That would have this landform here hitting somewhere in there, and then it's just a matter of making a decision of what the silhouette of the top of that ridge line needs to look like. Now, before I do any of that, I've got, I don't know if the camera can see that or not, but I've got the bus line is coming in at the flush with the plywood on the bottom here, and it's going to kind of cause me problems, I think. So I'm going to address this and try and keep it directly underneath the track until this point, and then I don't know, I might come on the underneath side. I'll figure that out. I don't think I'll film any of that, but it needs to be done before I get too serious about any of this. I've got a couple of chunks of foam in here that I'm going to start with. And one of the first things I want to do is kind of get a baseline for where the track level is as I look at it from this side. Nothing perfect. One of the things I want to do is I don't want this shape to be kind of like a exact duplication of that shape, because I really don't like that shape, but I'm thinking it's going to work out. And so I've got a high spot here, so I want a low spot here and maybe come up, but at the same time, if the track level is right in here somewhere, I don't want to be too high above the track, but I do want to have some height above the track. So I think I'm going to try and just draw something on here. And I think I can live with that. And of course, that means that a lot of this is going to have to come down, or, figuring that out will come later. But I think I'm going to start with this shape right here. Now, because I'm thinner at this end than the other end, I want to find kind of where that 1 inch piece of foam should have room to come in, which should be right about there somewhere. And the length of that looks like 14 1/8 of an inch. And now do the same thing again about here. About 20 centimeters. I'm not sure about this. I mean, I could probably get another piece in, but I don't know if it'll be worth it. I'm going to leave this alone for now and go ahead and get my rough shape here with these 4 pieces of foam and kind of go from there. Might look a little odd because I've got the camera reversed, but I'm going to be working in this area. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do. I've got some ideas and I've cut some foam. I'm going to give it a shot here and kind of see what this is going to look like. I don't know if that will show up on camera. These pieces are 4 inches, and the idea, I think, is that if I kind of glue them on like I have, you know, what I put on the outside of the spline, I can carve away the excess. I think that's probably going to work. All right, while the foam is drying up there from being glued on, I'm gonna try something I haven't done before since I'm getting very close to doing some carving, and that's to put strata into this to see if I can come up with something that looks passable for, you know, one of the geological looks I'm trying to accomplish here. So I've got my computer open, and so I'm looking at some things, and I'm just going to try and, you know, create some different looks. Having never really done this before, I really don't know what to expect. I've seen it done, so I kind of have, you know, an idea of what's going on here. expect to actually use this as much as it's just I'm kind of exploring, you know, what the process is. All I'm really doing is experimenting with different angles of the cut to see if I can do anything with any kind of intentionality, right? Because right now it just looks like foam that's being gouged out, and it doesn't look just a whole heck of a lot like rock to me. I've got some in progress thoughts about this, and so this is fairly random. You know, I just drew some lines on there and started pulling chunks out. Not real happy the way that it looks, but I also haven't tried to go in and make sense of any of the randomness that's there. And then this one, I have gone in and, you know, with a little more intentionality, tried to make it look like something that I'm looking at on the computer. And, you know, when you look at something like this, you have to wonder, what is it about it that's going to make it look believable? And I'm not 100% sure what that is yet. Besides, you know, the strata running at an angle, I think, does something to the eye that definitely makes it look a little more, maybe believable is not the right word, but nicer. It catches the eye more. And then the other thing is, you know, looking at the pictures, the way things chip and fall off in the real world, I think, if I'm looking at it right, is there's going to be more at the bottom of the rock than at the top. So, you know, like this right here, needs to be a little more shallow, I think, in a couple of areas. And this is where having a longer, more flexible blade would come in handy. which I don't have at the moment. I guess I don't think I do. And I'm just wanting to chip this completely away. And I could maybe even leave some of that there. So now you're left with multiple different shapes in here at different angles than just this one square. So that's what I'm trying to kind of figure out. And then the next thing, you know, is maybe putting in some of these cracks that are much smaller, because really when you look at this kind of thing, I've probably got way too much of these huge crevices in here because that's what this knife lends itself to do. So all this to say is that there's going to be a learning curve, and I think I'm going in the right direction, but I'm not completely satisfied with how this works. So I'm going to do several more of these kind of test pieces and maybe get a little bit closer to what I'm looking for. Well, this is the end results of my efforts, and I'll have to say that it turned out better than I thought it would. I didn't try very hard to kind of line up the strata because I concentrated on this one to begin with and tried to make it into something, and then kind of came back and worked on this one afterwards. And you know, if that's the worst that I can do moving forward, then you know I can live with that. Now there is one more thing that I want to do with this to kind of prove a concept that I have in the back of my mind, just to see if this is going to work. So I'm going to try something and we'll see how this goes. The idea is if I can cut this with the hot wire cutter super thin, then I can kind of use it as a rock mold. There's only one way to find out. The idea, of course, is to thin these down enough that I can kind of create something that is a little flexible and can adhere to, you know, some undulations that exist with plaster cloth or whatever else I choose to try and glue them onto. And I think I could go even thinner if I needed to. It's just a matter of getting the right jig for the hot wire cutter. So I think I'm going to take a look at a few other things and then probably call this video good. To finish up here, I want to talk just a little bit about the area in here. I've got one piece of foam in there that's 4 inches in height, glued in to what was already there next to the spline, and then everything else is just laid in there. And I think what I'm going to do is take out the foam that's loose and lay in some cardboard strips and kind of see what that looks like, and see if I can integrate the cardboard with the foam. You know, because I'm not entirely sure what I want in there, so I have a hard time seeing what I want with the foam. I like the cardboard because I can manipulate it in real time and change it, move it, those kinds of things. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not saying I won't use the foam, but for sure before I glue it all in, I want to work with some cardboard as well, and maybe even work with both cardboard and foam to kind of see how it's going to develop. So stay tuned. There'll be more on the Otter Creek in Rio Grande. I really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you around.